Hi, everyone. I'm Buck. I'm here with my friend Amy that I've known since seventh grade. I've been in therapy pretty much all my life, still in therapy and under psychiatric care, meaning they prescribe. Not
Yeah.
really that I see them, but I've pretty much done this all my life since I was in fourth grade. And um, we decided to start a podcast, and we've been going for a while now to talk about different aspects of mental health since Amy is a therapist, but also Amy has MS, and I'll let Amy talk.
Yeah. So I'm a therapist for the past 40 years, and I've had MS for the past 30 years. So that's my dysfunction. It's more physical. There's some mental stuff, just situational. But today we're going to talk about um, some how to maintain some positive coping skills and stuff. So, but first, did you have a dysfunction for this week? What was your?
Um, I actually had an opportunity to see others' dysfunction. So I took an online class, and there's someone who's giving the class, and um, people do not understand that they need to mute their mics. So she would do it for them, and sometimes she
Yeah,
would announce that she was doing it for them. We were allowed to comment, but like kind of in an orderly fashion. I don't know how to do the little wave thing on the because if you want to raise your
yeah.
hand, you put the wave little emoji at the top. I don't know how to do that, so I actually just would raise my hand. But
Yeah, that
just
works.
I was very proud of myself that I just for the most part listened. And there
Yeah,
were things that, stories and examples that had to be read out loud, and I would volunteer to do that just to show that I was really participating. But I I was just amazed some of the things that people say, and they go on as if you're really interested, and
yeah,
they have a better understanding than the instructor.
sure.
And
Yeah,
they've got an
yep.
insight into something else. And, finally, there was one point where she just said to this one girl, she goes, I'm shutting off your mic. And
Because she was
evidently, I
talking
found
too
out
much.
later the girl, because I talked to the guy who was the assistant,
Yeah.
she was crying and she
Oh,
wouldn't go on with the class. She felt that she was humiliated or something. And I was like,
oh,
you talk too much, and you're
yeah,
saying she was saying, pardon me, but I know blah 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 blah, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, then why are you taking the class?
Right.
If you know, why are you taking the class? So I was very good. I just listened, and I was very like, I wasn't like this. I was,
Yeah,
really,
you're engaged.
I was engaged, and I
Yeah,
found it very interesting. And so I could have been dysfunctional, but I wasn't
yeah.
because I saw examples of, there were like 90 people in this class, and I saw examples of people just.
Doing stupid
I
things. Yeah,
talked to the assistant in the last hour, and because you do a one-on-one kind of thing,
yeah.
and I said, "Oh my god!" And he goes, "Oh, this is nothing." He said, "Every time we give these classes, he goes, there's always someone who just has to be thrown out of the class." And I said, "Why
Yeah,
take it? I mean, why take the class if that's what you
yeah,
want to do?" I think that some people really need to be noticed.
yeah.
You know, they need to have gain some sort of respect or
Yeah,
validity.
they need validation
Yeah,
for
they
their
need
knowledge.
validation. That's good.
Yeah,
So I wasn't actually dysfunctional during this, but I sure witnessed a lot of it. And
yeah.
how about you? What was your dysfunction?
Oh, we had some people over for a cookout on Sunday, and I had never met them. I think I'd met him before. Because he's been a customer of my husband's business for a while, and they're sort of colleagues and friends, and sort of just a weird kind of relationship. And but I'd met him, and I never met his wife. And what I realized was that I think ever since the pandemic, I've lost some. I've become like a hermit almost, and I've lost social skills. Like I just didn't feel like I knew how to engage or what to talk about or just like how to ingratiate myself. It was just very strange feeling of like being so out of the loop or something of
Yeah.
life. So I realized that I can function well like in a I go to a store, I can function well there. I can because there's a task, it's task oriented. But when it's not, and I function well in my with my clients because that's also task oriented. That's what I'm going to do. But when it's just sort of free floating, like get to know somebody, it's like I'm clueless these days. So I realized I have to up my social skills game.
Yeah, but I think you just met them for the most part.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
they probably feel the same way too. It's not necessarily, I think
yeah,
I have these, I do the, just for fun, but
yeah,
I do the Facebook dating app. It's not actually a
yeah,
very good app. It's not a very good app, but it gives people in your area and people look at you. I never go
yeah,
after somebody. It's like people who, are attracted to me or interested in my profile or whatever.
yeah,
But the thing is, I've met a couple of them, and I'm going to meet another one this week. Um, and you just meet for like a drink, or you meet for coffee or something like that.
yeah,
And I realized that people are. It's a very artificial way to meet people,
yeah.
and you can tell pretty much in the first 10 minutes whether or not that person is interesting to you. Not that they're a bad person or anything. It's
Right, right.
just if you're interested in actually
Yeah,
even being their friend. Some people
right.
just turn you off,
Yeah,
and
yep.
it's nothing that they do or say. It's just kind of this attitude that you
Like a
have.
vibe. Yeah, yeah,
So my way of getting out of being a hermit because of the depression and the anxiety, I've really cut myself off. I really like for the most
yeah,
part of the fall and winter, I was homebound. I mean, I would go to the gym once in a while, but I was really homebound. And now that
yeah,
it's summer and the anxiety is lifting a little bit, like I've gone through it, um,
yeah,
I'm trying to meet people. I mean, people that I wouldn't necessarily meet. I met people through, the opera company that I had, meet people through the gym,
yeah,
but I just, it's like you being a recluse for such a long
yeah,
period of time, and I've cut myself off from doing most of what I used to do up here in Canada,
yeah,
where the wildfires are. Um,
yeah,
I am learning to by going to meet someone, it's putting myself out there. I don't expect anything from them. It's
right.
and I don't expect anything from the actual meeting. It's just putting myself out there. And I think maybe people need to take a step who feel I read all these posts on Facebook and stuff. I'm lonely, and I'm like, well, get out there.
Yeah,
I mean, you can be
yeah,
lonely, but
right.
when you have people that constantly say that, and then and the rest of their post is bitching about everybody, you're like,
Yeah.
well,
Well, maybe
maybe
that's
you'll tell
why
you
you're
secret.
lonely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know.
yeah,
But I can't really say anything because I was really anti people, for a while. I'm just tired of being disappointed by people and
yeah,
people, not being who they say they are, and just getting into situations where I say things that I shouldn't be saying because I get upset. I get really angry. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So you wanted to talk about coping skills?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we all have things that we do when we get stressed, and some of that's just like habitual stuff, and some of it's healthy and some of it's not healthy. So, like coping mechanisms are things that just sort of are our default ways of coping with stuff. So, unhealthy things would be like drinking, smoking, taking drugs. For me, it's eating too much. I do that a lot. So just things that pop up. But we also need to like cultivate things that are healthier for us and better for us. So, um, things like meditating or um, going out and meeting people. So So, what kind of coping things or coping mechanisms do you usually fall back on? Or
Well, I
you?
mean, I have my medication, but um, when I get really, really depressed, I will stay home and I will drink because I can't stand the anxiety or the
Yeah.
deepness of the depression.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't on. It's usually when I'm not on the right medication, like it's not doing what it's supposed to do. But now this medication, even though it's made me gain weight, is actually working and it cuts down on the
Good.
anxiety and the depression. So I feel like I'm coming out of it. So
Yeah.
I don't really drink. But
Yeah.
the thing is, I don't, during those dark periods, I wouldn't drink for pleasure. It was just
Yeah.
either fall asleep or it actually kind of removes you
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you're drinking and people look at you and there's a stigma about that. And, it's like, but that's the only way I can get through it because I can't stand the feelings. And, you know,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
done my diligence as far as going to therapy and being medicated and seeing a psychiatrist and, checking myself into a hospital ward, for mental issues.
Right.
So, I mean, I've done that. And then you can do that. You can check yourself into
Absolutely.
and don't the stigma that goes with that. When people ask me, have you ever been, just like on a questionnaire or something, have you ever
Yeah.
been in a mental hospital? And I said, yes. I said, yes. And I checked myself in and I needed
Yeah.
it because I don't know
Yep.
what I was going to do. I wasn't necessarily suicidal. I just didn't know what to do. I needed
Right.
to get some help. And it seems that with the way healthcare works, even here in Canada, I mean, I'm still waiting to see a different psychiatrist. This is 6 months now. But if I went to the emergency room at this place where the psychiatrists are,
Hmm.
um, then I would get a psychiatrist. If I
Right.
went and checked myself
Right.
in, then I would
Yeah.
have a psychiatrist. And I would have a
Yeah.
therapist. And I would have group therapy. So,
Right.
and I spoke last week about last week or the week before about my phone call with a caseworker who's supposed to be, you know, referring me to therapy. And then
Hmm.
she's saying she can't because I haven't seen the psychiatrist yet. But that's not the way it was explained to me. And I said to her, you know, what am I
What
supposed
are
to
you
do?
doing?
She goes, oh, well, if you're in a crisis, you can call 1-800-HELP or whatever. I don't know what it is. And I was like, I, I don't want to be in a crisis. I'm trying to avoid being in a crisis.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's why you're calling. Yeah.
I mean, one of the coping mechanisms is when you can, because when you're in
Right.
it, when you're in the depression or the anxiety, you can't get out of it. You can't
Right.
really do anything. You're sort of couch bound with, Netflix or something. And,
Yeah.
that's another coping mechanism for me is to watch something I've seen before a lot that's
Yeah.
formulaic, like Friends or something.
Yeah.
There's always the plot, and then there's a subplot, and then the little antics that they do, during the
Yeah.
show. So it's all there. It's a
It's
formula,
orderly.
recipe,
Yeah.
and my mind can follow it, and it will actually calm me down. It stops the loop because it
Yeah.
interrupts the loop. But
Yeah.
um, with mental health care, it's you have to be when you can. You're not in the depths of depression or whatever. The
Right.
it's the coping mechanism is to do whatever you can to get a therapist, to get psychiatric care, to get medication.
Right. Those are the
That's
skills.
your
Yeah.
coping mechanism, and it makes you feel
Right.
better because you're actually going towards something. It
Right.
can depress you when they say we can't give you health care, mental health care. That gets you
Yeah.
depressed again.
They made it worse
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know the drinking and in the past, like in the 90s, I was doing coke. Well, actually, it was after the World Trade Center. I was doing cocaine because I was really, really depressed.
Yeah.
And
And then
I had a
yeah.
therapist who, I told the therapist, and he said, well, I mean, if you hadn't been doing it, because I had a problem in the 90s, I would say. He said, and I told him about that, and he said, well, if you did it, and he said, and if you didn't do it, maybe you wouldn't be here, because I was so depressed that the cocaine would
Right.
make me feel joyous, euphoric,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they say, euphoric.
Right.
And so it would change the mood. It was like, the old pinball machines with the tilt,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
start it over, or a
Yeah.
reboot kind of thing. I mean, I know it's not healthy and I wouldn't do it now, but it's like that's, you kind of get through it, and there's and you tell people about it or you don't tell them about it, because there's a shame that goes with
Yeah.
it. It's like, oh, you did cocaine. And I said, everybody in the 90s did cocaine. Are you kidding? It
Yeah.
was New York City. I said, what are you crazy? But yeah. And then I stopped. So,
Yeah.
because I really stopped because it wasn't working anymore.
Right.
Like I
Right.
said, I don't do these things. I didn't do these things for the high or the whatever. It was to change the mood, to
Right.
change the
Yeah.
loop, you know. And I
Yep.
think a lot of people do that. You see people on the street that are doing that. I know people that do that. And,
Right.
it's just, you're looking for something to medicate yourself to make it stop,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And there's a shame that goes with that. And you don't want to tell people because what if it's on your record as far as your medical records? I had somebody, God, I don't even remember what it was. Somebody in, oh, when I moved to New Jersey, from New York, and that was
Hmm.
that was years, and like they, my doctor, because I had the file through, so she said, "Oh, so you have a problem with cocaine?" And I was like, "No, no, that's years ago,
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, a decade ago, more than a decade ago."
Right.
She was like, "Well, I mean, do you still do it? Do you still have a problem? Because we can, we're going to have to monitor that, and I can't give you this medication if you're on the." And I said, "No." And I was like, "Oh my God, is that going to follow me?" Because I was honest. I
Yeah.
was honest, not because I got in trouble or anything, but I was just
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
And so with that, you don't know if you really want to reveal it. So when
Yeah.
I
I
moved to
can
Canada
understand.
and they asked me that, did I ever have a problem with, because I didn't have my records transferred. And I said, no.
Yeah.
I
Right.
said, no,
Right. I don't blame you.
no, because
Well,
I don't want
here's
that
the
following me around.
situation. Yeah. Well, with you, it was, there's drug addiction and there's drug abuse.
Right.
And abuse creates addiction sometimes, but in your case, I think it was you were abusing it in order to you were self-medicating with it, but you weren't an addict. You weren't addicted to it because once you felt better, you could go off, you didn't need it anymore. And you were aware of like the stigmas, and so it wasn't like a hard thing for you to, I don't think that you spent a lot of time like trying to get off of it.
No,
It was like once you didn't need it anymore, you just
it
didn't do it.
stopped working.
Yeah.
My whole
So
thing is
that's the
what worked.
difference. Yeah.
What
It
worked.
just was what was working for you at the time. And once you kind of thought about it, or, once you felt a little better, then you didn't have to go through withdrawal and all that stuff. So, that's the difference. And so I think for you, when they say, did you ever have a problem with it? You did in the sense that you were using it for, to make yourself feel better, but you weren't addicted to it. So you can honestly say you didn't have an addiction problem.
Right.
You weren't addicted.
Right.
So you're not lying.
And
So
it just seems
yeah.
that, they want you to be honest, but then if you say it, then it goes on some sort of record and it just keeps following you around.
Right.
And you're like,
Right.
oh my God, so you go into the
Yeah.
doctor for something
So what's the
completely
point?
unrelated and they bring that up and you're like, what?
No. What are you talking about?
You know,
No,
you
I
should be
used
able
it
to be
in,
open with your doctor
yeah. Yeah.
and tell them everything. And it should be confidential and it shouldn't like follow you around forever and ever
Right.
that somebody else will bring it up.
Yeah.
I guess the
Exactly.
other way that I cope is I go to the gym.
Yeah.
But
That's
sometimes
definitely is helpful.
there's too many people. There's people that are using all the things that I want to use, which really makes me
Yeah.
mad. Um, there's one treadmill I really like because it actually shows. There's a channel that shows old sitcoms. So
Oh,
while I'm on the
great.
treadmill,
Yeah, you can watch old sitcoms.
I can watch like All in the Family.
Yeah.
So it's the only treadmill that does that. And so
And if
I get
somebody else is
pissed
on
off
it,
when
no
somebody's
fair.
I get pissed off when somebody else is on it and they're not even
Yeah.
watching it. They're not
Like,
even
that's
watching TV.
mine.
Mine. So yeah,
Get
it's great.
off.
You watch 2 episodes and you're done. It's 45 minutes. It's
Yeah.
like 45,
That's
50 minutes.
perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're done. So,
Yeah.
but like today I went and I woke up with my back bothering me. I don't know why. And so I went to the gym. I stretched. It's
Hmm.
better now. And I went to do the treadmill. And
Yeah.
there was a woman on it, not even
Damn
watching
it.
the screen, not even watching the screen. She's just like jogging along. And
Not even using it. Ah,
I was like,
go to a different
wow.
machine.
So I thought, well, okay, I'll do my back today. So I went to do my back and I
Yeah.
started, and I have these moments where you go, nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
It
Not
went
happening.
bling, and I went, oh, no, no back today.
Yeah.
Just no back today. So, and then I did it, and I was like, you know what? I have to go to the store. I have to meet with you. So I was
Right.
like, you know what? I'm going to leave early. I'm going to close up the house because of the smoke, because you can really see the haze and you can
Yeah.
really smell it. So it's
Wow.
not yellow, the air, but you
Yeah.
can smell
It's
it
sort of
and
orange.
you know
Yeah.
it's there. So today the wind just shifted so that it's coming up here. So coming over here from Manitoba and
Mm.
Saskatchewan. So I guess you got it too.
A little bit of yeah. There's a little, I guess there is. I haven't been outside that much, but
Okay.
um, it's kind of weird. It's like the temperature's all over the place. So like yesterday it was like 68 high, and today it's 88 is the
Right.
high. And then tomorrow is 76, I mean, it's all over the place. So it's just, but I should get out and get some vitamin D myself.
Yeah.
'Cause it really does help,
Yeah.
you know? So
Well, I mean, and that's a way for you to cope is to
yeah,
go outside and to uh, find something that you want to do.
yeah,
I mean, are you still going into the office?
yeah. I was there yesterday, like
Okay.
most of the day. So yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm getting out as much as I can. It's just more inertia, like where you're like, it's just not worth the effort to get up.
Yeah.
So that I have to fight against that too. That part of why I'm heavier than I would like to be is because I just don't move around very much. I do the yoga 4 days a week, and or sometimes just 3 days a week because the Wednesday, some classes just don't happen because there's not enough people. So, but so I need to get out more and be in the world more
Right.
than just doing things that I enjoy doing things just on my own, and I'm such an introvert, and but that doesn't mean that I'm shy. I just don't get out. I just
Right.
don't.
Well,
It's
because
just
of
not where I find my energy. Huh?
because of your physical limitations too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's not like
It's
you're
hard to do
choosing
things.
to stay
Yeah,
home. It's like
right.
it's just easier to stay home. So
Absolutely.
going
Yeah.
to the
Then
office is good, and
it's just all this activity, and after the end of if I go like to the Goodwill or go wherever, go do something, and at the end of it, like my body is dead, and so it's hard for me to get to where to the next place or
right,
to get home, and then like of all the I have this problem, and then and when I get to my car, I can't just collapse into my car. I have to get the walker into the car, and
right,
I have to, it's like just stuff I got to do.
right,
So, sometimes I have to weigh you know, do I want to do this? How badly do I want to do this? Do I want to go through all the machinations of
right.
just getting out of the house?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but I should, but that's better for me to get out. I know I feel better when I do. So,
is
just have to suck it up.
is there 'Cause sometimes in communities, there's like a little shuttle bus that'll take you to stores and things like that.
Yeah, I probably could get in. I probably could figure that out because there's specifically for people with
Right.
disabilities.
Right.
They'll come pick you up and all that kind of stuff. So, and I can Uber. I use Uber sometimes, and that's useful. You know,
Yeah, that's true. But they
yeah,
usually do have shuttle buses for elderly and
yeah,
disabled.
infirm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You,
just need to. I just need to look into it. Those are the kind of things that you look into when you're a senior citizen,
right.
and I'm not quite there yet. So, but I need to remember that I can look into there's this place called the Frisbee Center. I'm sure it's named after somebody. That's the senior center,
Okay.
for the township of Maine Township.
Right.
We have little square townships around here. So, yeah, so I just need to like look into that and find out what my resources are more.
Yeah.
That's another coping skill is to be able to look for resources
Right.
for things, you know?
Right.
So,
You have to be in a place though where you're like for me, where I'm not so depressed and I'm not so anxious. I have to get to
right.
the point where I can actually function and, excuse me, do the research or take a class or go out or, you know,
Yeah.
try to find a way to get out of this and to pursue psychiatric and therapeutic healthcare. Um,
Yeah.
but you have to be there first. But I mean,
Right.
for you, it's just you get into and for me, you get into sort of a sedentary
Right.
lifestyle and feeling, and oh, it's too much trouble, and so. But
Yeah.
having deciding one day that you are actually this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to look this up and I'm going to get some numbers and I'm going to get some websites and I'm going to, investigate them and see what I can do.
Yeah.
Even if it's like going to the grocery store or something, if you go with people, I mean,
Hmm.
that's a social thing. I mean, I think
Yeah.
part of the program is it's not just transportation, it's being social, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
going to
And interacting with
social.
people.
Yeah, yeah. My
Yeah.
friend in New Jersey who just moved into an elderly residence, they have a shuttle bus that goes
Yeah.
to Food Town and a shuttle bus that goes to the mall, I think once a month. But it
Yeah.
goes to Food Town, which is the grocery store in New Jersey. It goes
Yeah.
once a week. So that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, that is.
That's pretty good.
That's one of the things that I know is really useful for my mom, who's in or not assist. She's in independent living at a senior retirement village,
Right,
and there are shuttles, and they have all kinds of activities that they can do, like both inside, like
right,
bingo or whatever, and then outside where they take them to different restaurants or the grocery store or the
right,
malls or whatever. So that is a something that I know that it enhances your interaction, your socialization within a senior community like that. And I'm not in that, so I don't think about those resources, but they are there for people who are just like considered shut-ins or handicapped or
right,
whatever. So
right,
I just need to remember to use those, you
right.
know.
Thank you all for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Amy.
New topic next time. Well, we'll see ya.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.